Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a really powerful idea. When it comes to money, your success has less to do with how smart you are and pretty much everything to do with how you behave. We're going to break down the key lessons from Morgan Housel's fantastic book, The Psychology of Money. So let's jump in and see how shifting your mindset can totally change your financial future.
You know, for years, we've all been told that finance is a numbers game, right? That whoever has the fanciest spreadsheets, the most data, the deepest knowledge, that's the person who wins. But is that actually how it works? Well, the core argument of this book is a big, fat no. Housel argues that being good with money is actually a soft skill. It's all about mastering your own psychology, your greed, your fear, your ego, and your patience. That's the real battlefield. So before we can even begin to think about the stock market or the economy, we have to start with the most unpredictable piece of the puzzle, our own minds. This first section is all about getting a handle on your inner game. Okay, this is a foundational idea. What looks like a completely nuts financial decision to you might be perfectly logical to someone else. Think about it. If you grew up with very little, you see money as pure security. But if you grew up with plenty, you might see it as a tool for taking risks. We're all just making decisions based on our own personal history. The goal isn't to copy someone else. It's to understand your own perspective and build a strategy that works for your life. And that brings us to a super dangerous trap, the never enough mindset. We've all heard those stories, right? Millionaires who lose it all because they just can't stop chasing more. If you don't sit down and define what enough actually looks like for you, you'll never feel wealthy, no matter how much you have. The ability to stop those goalposts from moving, that's a real financial superpower. We tend to put the rational investor on a pedestal, this person who makes perfect, cold, data-driven decisions. But let's be real, that's almost impossible for a human being. Housel argues it's way better to just be reasonable. A reasonable person creates a simple, sustainable plan that they can actually stick with for decades, even when it's not perfectly optimized. And over the long haul, that consistency will be short-term brilliance every single time. So now that we've looked inward, it's time to look out. Once you've got a handle on your own psychology, then you can start mastering the outer game, dealing with risk, luck, and all the chaos of the market. And this is just a brilliant paradox that most people totally miss. The skills that help you build wealth are often the complete opposite of the ones that help you keep it. Getting rich usually means taking big, optimistic risks, but staying rich, that takes humility, frugality, and a healthy dose of paranoia, knowing it could all vanish tomorrow. Survival is everything. This is that balanced mindset in action. You basically have to hold two opposite ideas in your head at once. You save your money like a pessimist, as if a crisis is right around the corner, because let's face it, life is unpredictable, but you invest your money like an optimist, with the belief that over the long term, human creativity and progress will lead to growth. Now, this number points to a really wild force in finance called tails. What it means is that a tiny handful of extreme events, the massive wins or the catastrophic losses, account for almost all the results. You don't have to be right all the time. You just need to survive the bad stuff and be in the game long enough to catch one of the good tail events.
Oh man, this is so important. We love to think that success is purely about skill and failure is just about making dumb choices. But the reality is that luck and its evil twin risk play a massive role. Bill Gates was a genius, but he also had the insane luck of getting access to one of the only school computers in the world back in the 1960s. Acknowledging that keeps you humble when you win and helps you forgive yourself when you lose.
Okay, so we've covered the inner game of our minds and the outer game of the world. But what are we actually playing for here? What's the real prize? I'll bet it's not what you think. When you hear the word wealthy, what's the first image that pops into your head? For most of us, it's the obvious stuff, the fancy car, the designer watch, the giant house. Our culture has basically trained us to see wealth as luxury spending.
But here's the kicker from Housel. That's not wealth. That's just spending. It's the absence of money. When you see someone driving a $100,000 car, the only thing you know for sure is that they now have $100,000 less than they did before.
So here's the big reveal. True wealth is invisible. It's the money you haven't spent. It's the stocks and bonds and other assets that are working for you behind the scenes, quietly building you options and freedom. Real wealth is what you don't see.
And this right here gets to the absolute heart of it. The best thing money can buy isn't more stuff, it's control over your own time. It's the freedom to wake up and say, I can do whatever I want today. That level of autonomy, that's the real goal.
And that is precisely why saving is just not optional. You're not just saving for a down payment or a new car. You're saving for a future that you can't possibly predict. Savings buy you flexibility. They buy you peace of mind. They give you a buffer against all the curveballs life is going to throw at you.
Okay, this brings us to our final section, and to the single most powerful force that really ties all these ideas together. It's the one asset that can make up for almost any other financial mistake you might make.
And that asset is time. The real magic behind Warren Buffett's insane fortune wasn't just that he was a brilliant investor, it's that he's been a pretty good investor for an unbelievably long time. The vast majority of his wealth, that crazy exponential growth, happened after he qualified for Social Security. That's the mind-bending power of compounding. So after all of this, after looking at our own psychology, the nature of risk, what wealth really is, and the power of time, it all comes down to one simple, powerful idea. And there it is. That's the secret. Success with money isn't a race to see who's the smartest person in the room. It's a marathon of endurance. The person who can stay patient, stay consistent, and just stay in the game longer than anyone else is the one who wins. At the end of the day, mastering money is really about mastering yourself. And patience, that's your superpower.